Thank you for tuning in to Naijha Speaks. I'm Naijha Wright Brown, co-owner of the Land of Kush Vegan Soul Bistro in Baltimore and executive director of the Black Vegetarian Society of Maryland. Today, what are we talking about? Who is Plant-Based G? Well, he's plant-based, G. So, we're going to bring him right on and we're going to talk to him about everything that he's doing and what's on his plate, plant-based. So let's get started. What's up, plant-based G? How you
Hello.
doing?
Hello. I am doing well. I'm doing quite well. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I'm living, I'm breathing in that, how Ralph Smart says, that good ass prana.
There you go.
Life is good and well.
No doubt.
So,
No
blessings.
doubt.
Tell us a
No
little bit
doubt.
about yourself.
Well, I guess I'll start off with kind of my plant-based journey. I've been vegan or plant-based going on 4 years in July. My journey started off like, many other individuals. One afternoon, Netflix chilling, watch What the Health. And literally halfway through watching What the Health, my life changed. I knew immediately once I got just a little bit of that information that I knew was necessary. I decided to make a change. So, like I said, from that day on, cleaned out the refrigerator and haven't looked back. But it's been an amazing journey for me. I like to give people a little bit of background as far as my evolution goes too. So whenever I first started, it was strictly about, getting healthier with my diet. I used to be a pretty big guy too. I used to weigh in upwards of 360, 370 pounds. So was very active, but I said, I need to do more and change some of the things that I'm doing because I have kids and I knew I was going to have grandkids at some point. I want to be around and be as active and as healthy as I can. So that kind of led to me making the transition after watching What the Health. The amazing part was I knew that I would drop a few pounds, but it literally melted off of me, which told me a lot about what my diet consisted of beforehand.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
so long story short, I ended up losing a total of around 140, 150 pounds.
Woo!
Which, yeah,
How long does that take?
It took me. I lost my first 100 pounds within probably the first 10 months, and then after that, it was a kind of a slow progression in terms of just kind of trimming off some more of the excess that I'd had from what I was eating prior. But when I tell you my mental, my physical, everything changed drastically as far as kind of how I felt and who I became. But one thing that's interesting too, especially I think about Jane and Paige and some other people, as I evolved into kind of this plant-based individual, I learned more about animal welfare and what goes on behind the scenes as far as being able to put animal products on our plates. And so that actually became, excuse me, just as important as what I was doing from an eating standpoint. The recognition of all life and making sure that that I respected the way that it should. So in addition to the food side, obviously being as active as I can as far as making sure people are cognizant of what happens behind the scenes in terms of animal slaughter. But like I said, that's been kind of my journey. Now it's funny, with the food part, do a lot of cooking. That became a fun hobby for me. So I actually wrote a cookbook during the beginning of COVID last year. I guess it was around March. Had a little bit more time on my hands. I said, you know what? I do a lot of cooking. People were interested in some of my dishes. So I said, let me go ahead and put this to paper or to digital, and ended up writing the Quarantine 15 cookbook. It's got 15 of my favorite dishes plus one. The plus one is actually my mother's blueberry cobbler that is veganized. Probably one of my favorite things in the world
I
to
love
eat.
blueberries. I love
It's yeah, exactly. I love blueberry too. So I had to do the blueberry cobbler off in there. But anyways, evolved into the digital cookbook. Had a ton of great responses from that, and so from there, as a lot of people, I think COVID kind of changed the way that we looked at business, the way we looked at how we want to put food on our tables and support our families. So for me, I actually work in radio, and radio took a big blow in terms of the money that was coming in. So during that time frame, I kind of decided that I wanted to be responsible for putting money, in my pockets, and wanted to do something that I was passionate about. So fast forward and got a food truck that's getting ready to go up. So me and Erica Dotson, partner of mine, we're actually putting together a community vegan food truck. It's going to be based in Austin, Texas, and comfort food oriented. You know, my main goal is to try to make people recognize how fun it is to eat vegetables. I love doing incredible things with mushrooms, with cauliflower, lots of options, lots of opportunities. So that's the, you know, kind of my big project and what I'm focused on right now.
I am just looking at the site. There you go, folks, with Quarantine 15. You can get that at quarantine15.life on the website. You also got the hashtag going on, Quarantine 15, the teas, all of that. All right, the hat. Oh, I love hats.
We got to get you one.
I want to know, what were you eating that caused the weight gain? Because a lot of times people don't really understand it's, what you're eating, even in a vegan lifestyle.
Right.
Processed
absolutely.
food is processed food. And if you consume a lot of processed food, you can blow up and gain weight or become unhealthy. So what were you eating? And then at that time when you were doing all that, what was your daily discipline or your motivation like, your inspiration to evolve into what has become now Plant-Based G?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started off, I'd say as a lifestyle for a lot of people. So for me growing up, my parents, loving individuals, and their whole mindset was obviously, we ate a lot of food at home, but a lot of the foods that we were eating were foods and recipes and concepts that were passed down from generation to generation. So I ate incredible food, but it was a lot of your fried chicken, your pork chops, heavy on the beef, a whole lot of, like I said, great tasting things, but things that that definitely added to weight issues and a lot of other health issues that I dealt with ever since I was a kid. I grew up with upper respiratory issues as far back as I can remember. I know I was hospitalized twice in my adolescent years with asthmatic pneumonia. So I had a lot of things that I dealt with. I was a large kid too, as a youngster. So it was a lifestyle thing as far as how I grew up. As I got older, I ended up losing some weight, just from doing, things like the Weight Watchers diet and paying closer attention to, calories and whatnot. But I was still eating a good amount of animal related foods. And so I was heavy into weightlifting, did some powerlifting, and ended up putting a lot of weight back on. But a lot of that came from heavy intake of chicken, turkey, and fish. And I was one of those people who believed that if I eliminated beef and pork from my diet, that all would be well. But still, all of the calories, all of the cholesterol, all of those things, the sodium that I was consuming from the chicken, turkey, and fish was still, affecting me in an adverse way. So for me, a lot of what was adding to the weight had to do with those items along with the heavy processed foods. When I tell you the processed foods, whether vegan or not, that is the one thing that I've learned during this journey that I'd say probably had the largest impact on me. So I say that to say, whenever I started my vegan journey, I was just trying to find foods that weren't, animal related. So, there were quite a few processed foods that I was eating too. But as I got better, as I did more research, as I started cooking more of my own foods, I got away from the processed foods and started getting more into foods that are actually grown. As I did that, that was when the biggest step was made in terms of weight loss, in terms of good health, in terms of overall quality of life. That's when that happened. So for me, whenever I made that leap from, shopping on the outer edges of the grocery store, and I like to mention that I tell people, shop on the outer edges of the grocery store. Whenever you're shopping on those inside lanes, you're typically dealing with more processed foods. So for me, I tell people, I like to spend time on the outskirts. It's kind of like being in the city or staying in the suburbs. Right. Sometimes it's great to be in the city, but a lot of times it's good to be in the suburbs out there where you got the wildlife and that open air. That's what I tell people whenever you go to the grocery store, stick to the products that are going to be, on those outskirts, which are going to be your produce items, the items that typically have to be refrigerated or frozen. Not all of them, but a lot of those things typically you can find to be grown. So for me, that was the biggest step that I made was when I started eating more produce, more frozen goods. I found myself to be healthier. And obviously the weight, when I tell you the weight melted off, the weight literally, it melted off to the point to where I got scared, in all honesty. I mean, because I keeping it 100, I enjoyed being a big dude. I grew up in the era of Biggie Smalls and Heavy D and all that. So, everybody was loving, they were loving the big fellas.
Right.
I was a cool big dude, but, I knew I could be healthier. But, at the same time, when the weight was melting off, I ended up going to the doctor and I was like, yo, is this right? Is this natural? So he ended up doing a number of tests on me, but there were 2 or 3 that really told me that I was doing the right thing. One was the blood pressure.
Right.
2, and I tell this to the fellas, my testosterone levels were through the roof. And then 3, as far as my upper respiratory, all of those issues had since went away. So long story short, eating produce, a lot of your frozen items for me, that's what helped as far as the weight loss and overall health is concerned.
Thank you for that. And Roseanne is tuning in. Go plants.
No doubt. Go
yum,
plants.
No meat. Rock your plants off. I love
There
that.
you go.
No oil. And we'll talk
There you
about
go.
that now. The no oil. Also, people with the dairy, a lot of times when people are transitioning to vegan, they start with vegetarian. And I come from the pure vegetarian background. When we started Land of Kush promoted pure vegetarianism because to this day, I don't understand what dairy and eggs have to do with being a vegetarian, but we won't have that conversation. So pure vegetarianism is where I'm birthed. But when people think of vegetarian, they think everybody is eating dairy and cheese. And I say, I think that's the first thing you need to get rid of when you're transitioning because it's the dairy and cheese that's going to kill you.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that? And then this oil.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, with dairy and cheese, it was the dairy and cheese that caused my upper respiratory issues primarily.
That's what I was.
Yeah. Once I learned more about mucus, the mucus buildup, once I learned what all was in dairy and cheese, and then I just imagined all of those things in my body, especially when I'm laying down to rest, which was when I had most of those issues. It was for me, it was huge removing that from my diet. So dairy and cheese primarily help out as far as eliminating a lot of those upper respiratory issues that we deal with. And as far as oils go, what was big for me, and to be transparent, I still consume some foods with oil in them, but
I'm not with the no SOS because I do all of that in moderation.
Absolutely,
I'm going to have oil in my stuff.
Absolutely, but in terms of but in terms of the types of oils that I consume, sticking to your avocado oil primarily, and then avocado oil is huge for me. But sticking to your natural oils that you would get consuming those grown products should be the route that you go. So what I try to tell people is, obviously I'm big on having vegan comfort food too, but whenever you do consume those items, make sure you try to go the healthiest route. So try to use oils from products that are actually grown versus a lot of these chemically induced oils that we'll see in your typical kind of animal-based fast food places.
Thank you for that. What challenge are you in your bio? You're listed as an animal rights supporter. Right. What challenges do you face, or do you face any challenges as an animal rights supporter? And to add on to that, being Black, African American, and dealing with the community with that.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the list is lengthy. The number of problems, the list is lengthy. The list is lengthy. I mean, the list is lengthy on that. I mean, the food part is one thing, and there are issues with that, but getting to the whole animal rights and that portion, that's a whole nother level. And first off, I'll start off with, one thing you mentioned as far as being Black and also being, about animal activism. I know within the African American community, that's not something that's discussed very heavily. And I think a lot of it has to do with out of sight, out of mind. First off, you've got a large number of African Americans who, do consume animal-based products, even though the African American segment is the largest growing or the fastest growing segment within the vegan movement. You still have large numbers of African Americans that consume high amounts of animal-based products. So I think just conceptually, they can't imagine life without it. So whenever you start talking about, animal rights and even the feelings of animals, a lot of African Americans can't even tap off into that side of things. So it takes a little bit of time to get individuals to understand that all life is precious, all life matters, and we should all be cognizant of that and really take the time to tap off into that. So that's one element. Then there's a whole nother side of it as far as being a compassionate male but still being a quote unquote strong male. I know whenever I speak about, and especially early on with some of my friends and even family, speaking about compassion, especially from a male standpoint, I had a lot of friends, and especially, being in being in Texas, and I kind of grew up in the whole, kind of bodybuilding, powerlifting, sports environment. A lot of the whole compassion talk, that just wasn't something that was done. That wasn't something that was considered. We were doing, things like, pushing trucks up hills, eating steaks and doing as much as we can to get bigger and stronger and be the most gregarious, animalistic individual we could be. So conceptually, I've been around, and I've got close friends of mine where they can't understand that. So I spend a lot of time, getting people to understand that you can still be extremely strong, as machismo as you want to be, but be compassionate and actually consider what animals, what other life goes through, in their daily life and their daily experiences. I think a lot of times, we try to remove ourselves from all of that. But for me, I tried to put myself in animal shoes and thought about, what would I want to go through on a day-to-day basis? How would I feel pulling up to a slaughterhouse, knowing what my outcome is going to be? So I truly try to put myself in the shoes of animals as far as how I look at things. But explaining that to some of my male counterparts has been interesting, has been difficult. But the good thing is they've noticed the difference in me. They noticed the difference in how I move, how I look at things. They notice the difference in what type of individual I am overall. And so I think leading by example has really made the biggest change as far as how others around me look at animal activism. So that's another element of it. But then also just, getting people in general to look at all life as being valuable. That's a daily occurrence. I like to wear clothing whenever I work out that, especially when I work out and I'm out and about, that says vegan or something with being plant-based. And I'll get people to look at me and ask questions and whatnot. But the reason that I do that is to stimulate conversation, not only about food, but also about the bigger picture. And I think it's small steps. I'm not one to go in, trying to, bang people over the head and say, hey, in addition to eliminating animal products off your plate, you need to be an animal activist. You need to do this. No, it's done in steps. I know for me, it was an evolution, and I like to keep it real with people early on. Whenever I made the transition, I let them know up front I was plant-based. I was like, don't say vegan. I'm not plant-based. I mean, don't say vegan. I'm only plant-based. It's a food thing. I could care less as far as what's happening with the animals, out of sight, out of mind. But that was my lack of knowledge. And I tell people, I evolved into a much better, much more compassionate individual. So, I let people know I wasn't always like this. It took time for me to grow into the individual that I am today. So anyways, it's a daily thing, but I enjoy it. I embrace the opportunity to share my story with people, share my evolution with people, and hopefully there'll be more people who want to go through the same experience.
Well, you're speaking my language. You said a couple of things. I love to wear apparel, especially hats. Anybody that knows me, I like all the caps, and whether it's as a vegan, some vegan message or plant-based or whatever, or if I'm repping Baltimore or New York City, wherever I'm at, and then the shirt, like I have my little veganlicious shirt from Redefine Your Mind. Shout out to them, love them. Always like to buy gear from them, or plant-based dripping or whatever, just to stir up conversation, because people will ask. They look at the bag or whatever, and it just draws them to you, and then they'll ask these questions. And I don't beat over the head either. It's leading by example. Showing people I'm happy in the lifestyle I'm living in. I'm true with myself. I'm vegan, been vegan for a while, been eating tofu when I was in my early 20s, and everybody's like, all, crazy about the tofu. If you don't want it, don't eat it. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's like, I'm still here and I'll be 50 in a year. So
no doubt.
Let's talk about the Hip Hop Vegan cookbook, the Quarantine 15. So I'll bring up the site again. What are some of your top recipes and important messages in the book? So, and folks, here it is. You can get it right on the site, the quarantine15.life. You can get the cookbook here. Let's talk about what's the top recipes, all that.
No doubt. I'd say probably my favorite, along with many of my friends and family and other people's picked up, is definitely the fried mushrooms.
Woo!
Anytime you can do something
You
that's
said
fried,
mushrooms, my
anytime you can
favorite.
get busy with the fried oyster mushrooms, you know it's a situation. So obviously, I got a fried
Love it.
mushroom joint off in there. Very easy to prepare. Love
Okay.
that. Also, one of my favorites as a kid, and some people have had them before, are Pecan Crispies cookies. Those, when I tell you, I used to eat Pecan Crispies by the dozen. My mother
What?
would make those. And so, anyways, I've got a veganized version of them. Very easy to make. You can make those with your kids too. I've actually done a couple of cooking demos with kids and whatnot where we made those. So something that you can make with your kids. The Pecan Crispies are crazy. Another easy one too, and this is something that me and my kids have actually made, is the pizza quesadillas. Pizza
Oh
quesadillas,
no.
very,
What?
yeah.
Are
Yeah,
any of
in
them in
fact,
these
that picture,
pictures?
that's a picture of the pizza
Where?
quesadilla right
Right
there.
here?
So, yeah, that's a picture of the
Whoa.
pizza quesadilla right there.
Okay,
Very
okay.
easy to make. Essentially, all you're doing is you're taking your pizza, you're folding that bad boy in half, you're making it as big and as beautiful and as cheesy and as ridiculous as you want to do. Throw that bad boy in the oven. There you go. Voila. But when I tell you the pizza quesadilla for a while, it was probably my number one go-to for at least a year. And when I
I
tell you,
gotta
I
check
would
that
make
out.
pizza. In fact, I'm thinking about making that tonight. Now I'm like, I haven't made those in a minute. But pizza quesadillas, very easy to make. I mean, you can add whatever toppings you want to. On that particular recipe, what I actually used was ground up mushrooms as the meat. So that's another thing that I like to share with people is you can do a ton of things with mushrooms. So what I took was ground up mushrooms. You can use the mushrooms as your meat. Another healthy option for you. Bam, low calorie, good to eat. Lots of recipes like that off in there. I've got some chalupas up in there. I've got a dessert recipe up in there too with actually what I use is avocados and I throw a little cacao off in there and make a chocolate pudding with it.
Okay,
So
yep,
a
yep.
lot of great things. Yeah, like I said, a lot of great things, a lot of easy things that you can find off in the cookbook.
Oh man, I'm getting that book today. You know, I'm on a spree that I have to do more cooking demos on my channel. I mean, I love to cook. Sometimes it's time consuming. If it
Yeah.
takes more than 30 minutes, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, hey, trust me. Hey,
I
trust me.
like quick recipes. I want to get it done. I want to eat. No more than
Yes.
30, 45 minutes tops, depending on what it is. But really, I want it, between 15 and 30 minutes. I want it done and I want to sit
You and
down
I
and
both.
eat. Exactly.
Yes.
So that's great. So everyone get the book, the cookbook, and maybe you'll see me making some stuff from the book on
No
Naijha
doubt.
Speaks.
No doubt.
The food truck.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
this? What did you say? When it's going to be on the road? You have any idea?
Yeah. So the good thing is the food truck, we should have it up and going. It'll either be the end of June, early July. We're finishing up a couple of things that we have to do citywide as far as just taking care of inspections and whatnot. But we're looking
Right.
at late June, early July. We'll have that up actually on my Instagram page once that's up and going. But the name is Community Vegan. And the good thing for us here in Austin is actually either one or two with the number of food trucks. So what they actually do is make it reasonably easy also where you've got tons of location where you can park and you don't have to move. So we actually have a location where we'll be on site. We won't be moving around, similar to a brick and mortar. So we'll be
Okay.
on the east side of Austin. What's kind of cool too is we actually have a Winnebago. So we've got a fully outfitted.
What?
Yeah. So we've got, yeah. So it's gonna be some dope vibes.
That's gonna look slamming. I know.
Yeah.
Is it Winnebago?
We've got a fully outfitted Winnebago. And
Okay.
so, yeah, whenever people see it, I think that's going to bring some a different type of energy to it too. But we're going to be located, like I said, on the east side of Austin. Our primary, thing with food goes is providing vegan comfort food. So we're going to have everything from a cauliflower chicken sandwich to lemon pepper mushrooms, which I'm telling you, the lemon pepper mushrooms are crazy. Also, we've got our nachos. People love the nachos too. So got a wide variety of things. Like I said, comfort food oriented. Got a few things with the mushrooms too. But like I said, we're looking to open. It'll probably be, I'd say right now we're looking at late June, early July. But whenever we do get that info up, I'll have that up on my Instagram page. But again, with the whole Winnebago and some of the things that we're doing as far as the ambiance, I invite anyone, whether you live in the Austin area or live anywhere close. Yeah, definitely you're gonna have to come hang out with us.
And that's as the country is opening up and everybody's safe, traveling.
Yes.
paying you a visit down there in Austin, Texas to try out the food, because I know it's going to be amazing.
No doubt.
What are your thoughts about the Black vegetarian and the food justice movement and what's going on in the world today?
You know, I've been pleased, number one, to witness and to two be a part of the of the plant-based and vegan movement within the African American community, along with people of color. You know, I know for me, one thing that's been big is not only, you know, getting this message out to as many people as possible, but especially within the African American community, considering how many African Americans tend to either deal with disease or succumb to disease that's basically food based. I've had probably 15 to 20 people that are close to me that have actually transitioned into a plant-based vegan lifestyle. So it's been huge. I've had one of my buddies who's actually got off of all of his blood pressure medication after making the transition. I had another buddy of mine that's lost 20 to 30 pounds. He's also got off of the blood pressure medication. In addition to that, as far as the whole issue, as far as male libido goes, et cetera, he's gotten rid of that issue. So there's tons of things that I've seen within the African-American community in specific, as far as the benefits of the vegan movement. You know, what I'd like to see is more things that are done, I think, on a general market level, as far as reaching out to more African Americans. I know that for me in specific, a lot of my African American friends and family, a lot of the reasons why they haven't or hadn't made that transition or even consideration was a lack of education. You know, it wasn't the fact that they didn't want to, it was just the fact that they didn't know. You know, I know for me, a lot of the things that I learned about, I immediately put into my life. And so that's why it's big on me sharing that information. And so the more people that I speak to within the community and get that information to, the more changes that I know, you know, I've seen. So for me, you know, I find it to be not only an opportunity, but a responsibility to talk about the benefits, what I've experienced, but then hopefully share that message to, you know, one person, and then hopefully that one person tells another, and then, you know, it continues to grow. So it's been big. I know for me, just whenever I'm on social media and seeing people like yourself, Badass Vegan, Turn Up Vegan,
Oh yeah,
One
yeah.
Great Vegan, Brooke. There's so many different, you know, people that I've been around. I've been Chef Babette, one of my mentors. There are so many people who I've been around, who've encouraged me to not only do what I do, but continue to put the message out there. So for me, it's been a blessing to be a part of what I've seen take place.
Well, we got someone that says, "Bro, I cannot wait." They're waiting.
That's my boy. That's my boy Broderick. Right. That's actually, it's funny. That's actually one of my childhood friends right there. Who, when I say this cat actually saw who I was, you know, back in I mean, he was one of the cats who was eating at the crib with me. I mean, we used to have hangouts. And so it's funny that he tapped in. He's one of the cats who truly saw where I was at, where I came from. I mean, from the whole big guy, you know, he's an athletic brother too, but he saw everything that's happened. And he's one of the ones too, you know, that I mentioned as far as making that transition. I think he's probably about 95% vegan. I know his wife is 100% vegan now too, but they're a part of the people that I've told you about that I speak to, share the information with. So yeah, I love to see my man tap in, but he's a prime example of why I like to get that information out there.
Nice. And if we know better, we may do better, you know.
No doubt.
So it all depends on what we do with the information. But thank you for that comment, Broderick. Are you working on any other special projects, anything upcoming outside of the food truck?
I'd say, you know, primarily the food truck, as you well know, with the food business, you know, that's a lot of work in itself. So getting that, you know, up and going and off the ground, that's the big thing as far as step one. But definitely, there are some plans after that. I know for me, now that I'm, you know, kind of putting myself completely into the food industry, in addition to providing comfort food, what I want to make sure I do also is make it as convenient as possible in a bunch of different areas, as far as people being able to have a good time, enjoy themselves, but have access to good plant-based food. So at some point, definitely what I want to do is kind of get more off into your high-end cuisine, more of your kind of nightlife environment, but being able to have plant-based options. I know one thing that a lot of people say whenever they go out And like I know,
Oh yeah.
Especially within the community, when cats are going out and they're doing the clubbing and all of that type of thing, their option is going to be chicken wings, nachos, things of that nature that we obviously know are going to be animal based. So for me, I want people to still be able to have a good time and do those things, but be able to do it with having some clean, healthy options that are readily available to them. So that's part of some things that that we're looking at as far as the process and how we're looking to evolve with good food options.
Yeah, and we need more of that. And talking about that, I'll just take a moment to talk about the Keep It Fresh Day that's coming up on June 14th. I'll go to keepitfreshday.org to find out more information. So Monday, Meatless Monday, June 14th. Let's all keep it fresh. We're going to have things going on in a few different cities. So to find out all about that, go to keepitfreshday.org. If you're tuning in to Naijha Speaks, please subscribe, like, comment. If you like what you see here, you like Plant-Based G, leave a comment at naijaspeaks.com. Also, I want to shout out our sponsors, Welfare World, Veg Fund, Women Funders in Animal Rights, Eat the Change, nutritionfacts.org, Mercy for Animals and the People's Fund, individual supporters like yourself, and shout out to Jane Unchained News for allowing us this platform to have this discussion. I want you to share a final strong message and how people can connect with you. Is it just through the Plant-Based G Instagram? So just tell us about that, your final message, and how we can best connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. First, as far as being able to connect, best way to connect with me is on my Instagram page at plantbasedg.life. If you haven't been on my page and if you're looking to see some dope vegan food, tap into my page. So like I said, make sure you follow me, check me out at plantbasedg.life. Also, we have the community vegan food truck page up. Easier said than done. Food truck page up. So go ahead and we're going to be dropping some pics and whatnot pretty soon. So it's at community vegan. Make sure you tap into that. But as far as kind of a final note, the one thing that I want to make sure I convey to people is, this plant-based journey for me, this vegan journey, this vegan transition has absolutely been the best thing that I've ever done for me, hands down. Nothing close. When I tell you the way that I live, the way that I am, the way that I feel, mentally, physically, emotionally, I've never been felt as good as I am today. And I owe a majority of that to the transition that I made as far as the foods that I put into my body. So not only is it about the health side of it, but also I like to make sure that I convey with people, what you're putting, inside of your body is everything that's being, better yet, let me rephrase that. Everything that you put in your body has life. So for instance, whenever you're consuming plants, those things that have life, that have color, that have all of those good things in them, those things are good for you. Those things feel good. Those things change the way you look at life. They change the level of appreciation that you have for life. Whenever you're consuming those things that have to do with death, anger, anxiety, fear, those things are actually, they become a part of you. So whenever you think about making that transition, for those of you who haven't, think about those things that you're consuming and how they affect you mentally, physically, and emotionally. So for me, I try to consume as much life as I possibly can, not only with the foods that I eat, but the company that I keep. So if there's anything that you can do, definitely consume more life.
I love it. Eat to live, don't live to eat, garbage in, garbage out, and you want to stay healthy and strong. Health is the true wealth. I appreciate you coming on Plant-Based G. And this won't be the last time, because once you get set up, I want to do, something live out there. Yeah, with the truck, you're going to have to show us what's going on. We got to tune in and let the people know what it's all about out there. Absolutely, absolutely. So I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, be safe, be well, and eat healthy. All right. Have a good one.